Hello and welcome to Walking the Earth podcast. I'm Mike Margulies in Chiang Mai, Thailand. Thank you to everyone who has given us a rating or review on iTunes. Really appreciate all the 5-star reviews coming in. If you haven't had a chance yet and you are enjoying the show, please do help us out with a rating review on iTunes. Also, if you haven't taken advantage of it yet, you can get yourself a free audiobook at our link, audibletrial.com/WTE podcast. Audiobooks, like podcasts, great medium to just hang out and listen to, whether you're on a bus or on an airplane. It's really nice, just way to kick back and be entertained. So if you really would appreciate that, you probably will if you like podcasts. Go ahead and get yourself a free one, audibletrial.com/WTE podcast. This episode, I'm being joined by Lauren and Dave. You are both travel bloggers and digital nomads, authors.
Yep.
And you've been dating on the road now for in 2 weeks it'll be 3 years,
yes.
Right?
Correct.
Yeah, which is awesome. And so you guys each have your own travel blog site. You've got whatsdavedoing.com. That one has obviously Dave's site.
Strangely, yes.
And also neverendingfootsteps.com is your site, Lauren.
Yes.
And yeah, I guess I would definitely be interested though to hear, the angle of traveling as a couple. I've been traveling solo myself for, a year or so, but you guys have been traveling together. Maybe you've gone solo adventures as well, during points, but 3 years as a couple, very different experience.
Very different, yeah.
Absolutely.
So how do you guys kind of find that experience to be?
I prefer the couple travel because I'm not very good at traveling on my own. I like traveling on my own because I think I meet more people and I can be really selfish and do whatever I want whenever I want. But I also get lonely and I just have no common sense, so I screw up all the time when I'm on my own. So for me, being this part of the couple, Dave kind of keeps me safe and alive. So I prefer the couple travel because I stay alive.
Okay, staying alive is good.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to have me around for. For me, I've travelled both solo and in relationships and stuff. I like them both for different reasons. But I think for a longer term or a long-term trip like this, travelling solo for years is hard. Humans like we're social animals, and although you can always get a group of friends and someone around you, as a traveller you're always on the move, and those friends don't always go the same direction you are.
Yeah.
I think having someone to share it with over the longer term it helps keep you somewhat sane, somewhat normal, and enjoying your life. I think solo trips for 6 to 12 months, 18 months maybe are fine, but you're doing it for years and years by yourself, it's pretty tough, I think.
Yeah, I believe that. So I definitely, for me, I wouldn't trade the experience I had traveling solo for anything. But like you said, I don't know if I could keep it up for years and years and years and years on end, which is a big part of the reason I'm getting more stable now and staying. I mean, for you guys, I guess since you have someone else and you don't have the, where I was, it was like I wanted more stability, so I got that by kind of stopping moving as much. Do you find that because you're traveling kind of like together, you're kind of like, you can move more maybe and feel that stability anyway?
No.
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 You still want
I think it's a natural thing when you travel for a longer period of time. For a while you're super gung-ho about moving quickly, seeing everything there is to see, all the rest of it. I think after you've been doing it for a few years, I don't know, maybe it's just energy levels or maybe it's desire to have a community or something, but slowing down starts getting more appealing. It certainly is for us. I mean, even now we're moving more slowly than we were 2 or 3 years ago. Next year we may have a base for almost 6 months potentially in Europe, just because the fast moving thing stops being quite so appealing. And I think working online as well. Yeah, it's hard. Moving fast and working are not particularly compatible. Something will have to give, and so I would rather stay in one place for a while and work as hard as I can,
right,
and then travel and work as little as I can,
right,
rather than trying to combine both things poorly.
So when you're moving, it's when you're in more of like a not work mode.
Yeah, I'm in a travel mode. I mean, this is a new thing for me, well, for us, and for me in particular, is I've been trying to juggle it for a long time.
Right.
And feeling like I wasn't giving either thing 100% because I couldn't. When I was travelling, I had one eye on the laptop, and when I was working hard, I wanted to be travelling, and it was working okay, but it wasn't working great.
Right.
Now, in the last 4 to 6 months, maybe change that approach.
Right.
So just have a base, work hard out for a month or two, and then you just try and go almost completely offline for a couple of weeks or more, and travel like a so-called normal person. And it's actually been great. It's been, for me personally, it's worked really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and me.
And you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I can definitely relate to that because I think when you're moving, it's the excitement of being in new places and seeing things that is kind of enough on its own to keep you excited and occupied. And then it's those times when you kind of become more settled. For me now, you get into work mode because you're not in this mode of I'm just sitting on this new place and these new experiences and
I think
you don't even want to work. When
that's right. I mean, we spent so long in Chiang Mai that it's a great city, but it's not new and exciting for us.
We've seen everything. There's not really anything else we want to do here, so we don't feel guilty about sitting on our laptops. Every day.
Yeah, and you've been kind of holed up in recent weeks working on a book you've got coming out.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I like the title. It's How Not to Travel the World.
Yeah, because I'm pretty much a traveling disaster. No one should take travel advice from me because I screw up.
Right.
So.
That's awesome. But I kind of you were mentioning earlier when we were talking about how I like this concept that you're saying the mistakes that you made.
Yes.
Were some of the biggest ways you grew and learned. And I relate to that personally. Yeah. So, and is that kind of a theme of your book?
Yeah, that's the theme. The theme is that before I travelled, I had no life experience, I had no common sense, I struggled with anxiety, and I couldn't really function in the world at all. I was a disaster. I'd never eaten eggs or rice. I'd never been on a bus before. That was how sheltered my life was. So then when I decided to travel, it was just this crazy experience, and I had no idea what I was doing. I messed up so many times, and I had all of these terrible experiences, but at the time I was like, what am I doing? I shouldn't be traveling. I need to go home because I'm going to die eventually because of all these horrible things that are happening. And then eventually, after a few years, I realized that this really positive transformation had taken place, and I wasn't having panic attacks anymore. I was really good with food. I was okay with eating rice. I knew how to take buses. So travel was a really positive thing for me, but only through having terrible things happen.
Yeah. I can definitely relate to that. You probably, Dave, I assume you also probably relate to that.
Yeah. I mean, I started travelling earlier, so I got to make all my mistakes before I met Lauren, which was great.
So now you can keep her alive.
Yeah, now I keep her alive. I totally agree. You learn way more from your mistakes than you do from everything going perfectly all the time. I mean, it's very hard to learn how to travel well and get the most out of a situation if everything goes according to plan. Because normally the most interesting things happen when your plans don't go to plan. Things don't go to plan. The bus breaks down, or the hotel's full, or whatever. You screw up and end up in the wrong city, or whatever it is, and all these things have happened. And at the time, it's a nightmare. But you look back on it afterwards, and you're like, actually, that was really positive because I wouldn't have met that person, or I wouldn't have found that thing, or I wouldn't have been to that place had I actually done what I thought I wanted to do originally.
Absolutely, I definitely agree with that.
And there's very, very little in either my solo travels or when I've been with Lauren that I can think of where it's like something went wrong and it ended up being an unmitigated disaster. That just doesn't happen.
Right? It always works out one way or another.
And our plans change all the time. Even the ones that we do make change, and then we screw other things up, and it doesn't matter. It's fine. And to me, that's one of the biggest takeaways from any travel, especially a longer term travel, is don't worry about the plans.
Yeah,
the plans will change either because you want them to, or if you don't. It doesn't. Either way, they will change.
Yeah.
So just go with it, and it's. I used to be super super concerned, super stressed if things didn't go to plan. You know, I'd make plans and then they wouldn't work out, and that would be the end of the world. You know, if the bus didn't show up for 5 minutes when I was trying to go to work or whatever it was, that was the end of the world.
Right.
You know, I mean, seriously, the world was just about to explode. You know, you travel for a while, and much larger problems occur on an almost daily basis, and you just have to deal with it. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, all the little things don't matter at all. And I don't know, for me personally, I've got far more zen-like in my approach to most things in life. Because it's like, well, I can't change it.
Yeah.
And even if I could change it, I don't even know if I want to. Like, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme. And I think that really, it took a while to get to that point, but now it's pretty hard to get too worked up about most things, because it's like, well, you know, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
It always has been, it always will be.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, man. Like, the travel is kind of like a sped up version of regular life in many ways, right? So just in life also, things change. Things don't go the way that you thought they were going to go. And then when you're on the road, that happens like this rapid. So many experiences. Yeah, every day it's happening. And you end up becoming more zen because you're like, all right, well, that's just the nature of what it is, and you become at peace with it and not want to control.
You can try and fight it, but it's a very frustrating experience.
Exactly. And once you let go and flow with it, and all of a sudden you start saying, "Oh, wait, this is actually kind of cool experience." I'm driving around and it started torrential downpour the other day, and it could be, oh man, shit, what terrible, but. Oh, this is a cool experience, driving a motorbike in the rain in Chiang Mai.
Well, I think it's fun.
Yeah, that's right. It starts pouring on you, so you have to stop and get under cover, or whatever, and then you get to meet some locals who are sheltering under the same thing, and make some new friends or whatever. There's and life moves in weird ways, but there's always a positive to take from it.
Right, absolutely.
It was interesting what you were saying about it's a sped up version of real life, because the same thing absolutely applies to relationships too on the road.
Oh, yes, yes.
And like with us, for example. I mean,
the relationship happens so much faster.
Very much so. We
moved in together within 24 hours of meeting each other.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because if you think about it, normally if I was, back when I was working like a corporate job, for example, if I met somebody I liked, to get to spend 24 hours with that human being, that would take me probably a few weeks of time to get to that amount of time with that person. Yeah. But if you're traveling, you meet someone on the road, in one day you have spent 24 hours with that person. So you've essentially had weeks of a relationship all compressed. And so you get to those, I've had these experiences where I'm dating someone for a couple of weeks and it's just, wow, you're already so close. It's like it's worth a few months.
Yeah.
But it really is. And that's, to me, one of the greatest things about travel, is how quickly you can form relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't even mean romantic ones necessarily, just relationships in general.
Absolutely.
Of course, the downside is that they can go just as fast.
Yep.
So
that's the other side of it.
It's definitely a double-edged sword, but to me, there's less, bullshit, for want of a better word. People don't have the same excuses and the same rationales and the same barriers about meeting new people.
People have a lot less barriers traveling, I find, which is nice. It's refreshing because you can just be true to yourself and you don't have to worry about. Usually, people aren't going to judge something. You can be more open, and it's kind of like, I don't know. It's a very beautiful, nice thing.
I think it is, and I think too, there's people have less demands on their time as well. In so-called real world, it's people have they may have families, they may have houses, they may have hobbies and clubs and prior commitments, and even if you want to spend a load of time with someone, you can't always do it. They've got 1,000 other things that they have in their life that they're pre-committed to, and you fit somewhere near the bottom of their list.
Right.
When you're traveling with a backpack by yourself, there's almost nothing that can't be changed in a heartbeat. You have very few other demands on your time, and that leads to great flexibility, but also just being able to spend way more time with someone than you otherwise could. Because I don't have to rush off to insert a thing here. I can just stay here all night, and we can do the same thing again tomorrow if we want to. It's it's a very sort of free and refreshing way to live, and it's very hard to go back to.
It is.
to a life where that isn't the case.
Making commitments again is hard.
Yeah, very
I'm talking about it now. It's like I'm having a hard time trying to schedule things I have to commit to. Like, I want to be free. I want to be uncomfortable.
We are shocking for that.
Yeah.
I mean, when we have to try and tie our plans into other people's schedules.
Yeah, like your parents coming.
Yeah, like my parents or your parents. We're going to be in Europe next year, and Lauren's parents are looking 6 or 8 months out to go and book accommodation and flights for a trip that we want to do together. It's like 6 or 8 months.
Yeah,
we don't know what we'll be in.
We don't know when we'll be in 6 to 8 months.
It blows my mind when I was listening to another podcast earlier today actually about planning your trip, planning a sabbatical, and taking a whole 30 days off, and plan it. If you have to, plan it 2 years ahead. And I was just like, whoa. It's a whole different paradigm.
That's just a vacation.
Yeah, it just blew my mind to think wow, that's a completely different mind space.
Yeah, and I get how for some people they get comfort from making those kind of detailed plans. But to me, I used to be that person. When I first started, that's what you did. You sat down with the guidebook and you wrote out all the things you want to do and planned a number of nights and how you're going to get from A to B. And you just have this itinerary that was 28 pages long and told you exactly how things were going to be every hour of the day. And that's fine if that brings you comfort. But I think you still need to expect that it's actually most of it's not going to happen, even no matter how much comfort it might bring you. But I don't know, these days we've probably almost gone too far in the other direction. But planning is just a challenge.
Now it screws us over because now we won't plan until the day before, and then all accommodation will be booked. And we're like, why don't we book it a week ago? And with flights as well, we'll see a really cheap flight, and we're like,
Oh,
we'll look again in a month. And we double the price. So now we're too laid back.
But yes, a number of times we've said we must book those hotels, tomorrow, and then maybe
I'll do it the day after.
Next day, maybe the next day.
Yeah, I did something that I'm not accustomed to recently, so I'm planning to head back to the States for the holidays. And I did something I'm not very unaccustomed to, which is I really planned out my trip. I know what I have flights booked. I know which cities I'm going to be in, which dates, all the stuff. But here's the caveat: I booked them with Southwest Airlines, and you guys. I think it's American Airlines. You guys might not know.
I've flown Southwest.
You know Southwest. What's great about these guys is actually I can change my flight if I want to without a fee or anything. So I have a date booked that I have flights booked. Hey, if I change my mind,
zero cost to
so good on you, Southwest. I'll hereby endorse Southwest for travel. This kind of travel. So you can get yourself the flight in advance, but not
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's the key. Is even if you do have to make plans, try and do it in a way that they're as flexible as they can possibly be.
Yeah. It's hard to give up that flexibility after having it for so long.
But it's funny because it's hard to explain how valuable it is to someone who's never experienced it.
It is hard to. It's very hard. Actually, I've got tomorrow. I have a friend from home. He's coming to visit here in Chiang Mai for 2 weeks. A friend from high school, and I've been trying to tell him he really wants to get himself sit up with a room and all the. I've been trying to tell him, trust me, man. Don't worry about it. It'll just show up. It'll work out. And so far, I don't think he's done it. So I think it's good.
I mean, we get emails fairly often from people who read the site or whatever. And a fairly common question is, I've got 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever period of time they have, and I want to see all of Southeast Asia.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Oh my God!
2 days in Bangkok, 2 days in Chiang Mai.
Here's my itinerary, down to the minute, and it's just okay, cut out probably 2/3 of that before you even start.
And it usually doesn't account for travel days as well.
Right.
So cut out 2/3 of it, and then scrap the detail for the rest of it because. Within 2 hours of getting on the ground, you're going to want to change whatever plans you thought you had.
Yes.
So just trust me on it.
And you can't experience Southeast Asia in 2 or 3 weeks. You can't even experience, I would argue, Chiang Mai in 2 weeks.
No. And this is it. You try and explain that concept, and the answer is always, well, that's the time I have. So Okay, well, if that's the time you have,
choose a place or
then
two.
just dramatically slash your
Yes.
expectations about where you're going to get to in that time, because you'll be exhausted after a week and hating every minute of it. So just stop moving so fast.
And, I've done it. Like I remember the first time I did kind of like a backpacking trip. It was more like a fast packing or flash packing. What's the word? I forget what the word is. Whatever you call it. It was, I had 2 weeks of vacation. So a buddy and I, we went to Europe for 2 weeks. So we had 2 weeks and we saw like 5 cities with Amsterdam, Munich, Rome, Ibiza, Barcelona in 2 weeks. And it was an awesome time. And in many ways that trip opened the doorway for me because I met people that were doing the more long-term unstructured. And I was like, oh, someday that's going to be me. And that trip was a good experience. I think for many people, maybe it's for a first time kind of doing that trip, they might do it that way. But really, if anything, it showed me, maybe a little bit longer, unstructured.
Well, I think the feel, to me, it's totally a FOMO thing, but I
fear missing it. I do it all the time.
Totally. But I hate having to move on before I'm ready. I like being able to get my fill of a place and then say, okay, now I'm done. Now it's time to go. And whatever.
Right. When you feel that. When you wake up at that morning, you're like, today's the day.
And it might be after 2 days or it might be after 2 weeks. And you've never been there. You don't know whether it will be 2 days or 2 weeks or 2 months.
Exactly.
And having to just take that pre-booked bus or train or plane or whatever the hell it is. I know. I usually leave with regret, and I hate leaving a place with regret.
That was the first months of my trip. I planned out the first 4 weeks, and I went from Croatia to Russia in 4 weeks, and I booked train tickets, and I booked plane tickets, and I booked all my accommodation, and I was miserable for the first month of my trip, basically, because I was just moving so quickly, and I'd love a place and then have to leave, and then I'd arrive somewhere else and not like it, and then be stuck there for 5 days.
Yeah, it's never the right amount of time. No matter what you book, it's never the correct amount.
It's like if you've never been to a place, how can you possibly guess ahead of time? I want to spend 3 days. Oh, I think 3 days is enough to do that city. Like, what is doing a city? People get that question like, oh, is 3 days enough time to do this city? Like, what does that mean? Like, is enough time to like see the tourist attractions? Like, what is that?
That word doesn't exist in my
right.
Doing a country.
Doing a country. How long does it take to do Cambodia? Like, what does that mean?
Roughly a lifetime.
Right. Actually.
I'm with you on that. I think it's. To me, it's super important just to build in the flexibility as much as you can, because you end up disappointed. And even for so-called seasoned travellers, we've screwed up on that many times in the past. I mean, our Eurail trip that we did. It was
just insane. We visited, I think it was maybe 15 countries in under a month.
Because the justification for it was that we had Eurail passes or Interrail passes to use, and so
we have to take advantage of it.
So there was time, and we had to get to as close to Turkey as we could by the end of it, because we had plans in Turkey, and we're like, okay, well, there's a logical sort of route we can take, and it goes up and down, whatever, but basically it gets us close to our destination. But the reality of that is you are looking at so many different cities and countries in a short space of time, and again, so we'd be pre-booking stuff because we knew when we had to get there and leave or whatever, and it was never the right amount of time. Ever. I don't think it was.
Everything was too short.
Everything was almost everything was too short. And even when we tried to build a bit of extra time, and it still wasn't right, or we're supposedly experienced travellers, but we still got it wrong.
I think we spent 47 hours on trains over the month.
Holy shit!
So. Yeah.
It was great.
How not to travel the world?
Yeah.
Quickly. How to travel the world? The answer is quickly.
Yeah. So I think slowly is always a good advice, I would say. Well, at least the way I like to travel, and it sounds like you guys also have a similar thing. Actually, another thing that's interesting that you guys do. You have. I didn't mention it yet, but Dave, you've got another site too, which is TooManyAdapters.com.
Too Many Adapters, the story of every digital nomad's life. Basically, it's a technology for travellers site, and the background for it is that I worked in IT in a corporate job for far too long, and I've always been a geek at heart.
Me too.
And when I first started traveling, technology and travel just didn't really go together at all. There was very little in the way of technology. I had a Walkman and a few cassette tapes and an old film camera with a couple of rechargeable batteries, and that was the limit of my technology. Obviously, that's completely changed now, both for digital nomads, sure, but just regular travellers. You walk into any hostel anywhere in the world and it's all iPads and iPhones and laptops and Kindles and, no one's talking to each other, but that's a different story. And so...
That happens even with non-travellers too, right?
Exactly.
So must be at dinner with your smartphone, checking Facebook.
But I realised that there was a gap in the market, so to speak, for how to use this technology efficiently, what to choose, how to use it, what not to use it for, how to enhance your trip with your technology rather than letting it take over your trip, and all this sort of thing. And so about 3 years ago, I co-founded the site, and it's done pretty well so far. So that's what it focuses on, is technology for travellers. There's a section in there for digital nomads. There's a book on the site for technology for digital nomads. But it's not only for digital nomads, it's for anyone who has any kind of interest in technology as they travel and how to use it, how to get the most out of it.
That's awesome, yeah. And I think what you guys are both doing overall is another great example of, there's so many ways you can have, if travel is an important part, it's a priority for your lifestyle, you can still find ways to make money. This whole digital nomad thing. Okay, so you're both authors, so you can write a book from, what do you need for that? You need a laptop. And if you have, maybe you're saying point to people to the right technology for that too. But you can make a podcast or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. I think, the more time goes by, the more options there are for making money online in different ways. Freelancing is becoming way more of a thing, especially location independent freelancing than what it ever used to be. We both do some freelance work on top of all the other stuff that we do.
Freelance writing,
for different publications and so on. There's lots of different ways of doing it, and for most people, especially starting out, having multiple streams, even small streams, multiple income streams is a really good way to go, because you never really know which one's going to take off, which one's going to die. We've both seen our various income streams go up and down dramatically over the last 3 years as wider economic forces take over, and people's advertisers' priorities change, budgets change.
How we funded our travels when we first met each other was just through advertising on our site, and now that's pretty much gone completely for us. Well, we're not really that interested in doing it anymore. But
so you were able to fund your travels just through your blogs, essentially.
Travels in Southeast Asia, perhaps not travels in more expensive parts. Right. So you can make a small amount of money. You could cover your costs in this part of the world.
Through affiliate links and these kind of things.
Or just very AdSense and people buying space on your site, direct advertising and stuff like that. But that a lot of that's going away.
Why is that going away?
Probably putting their money elsewhere.
Okay, so the advertisements just aren't necessarily theirs anymore.
Yeah.
So it's just changed. It's changing.
It's changed. And you can either
you can adapt to it, I guess.
Well, you can either change with it, or you can diversify your income stream and do other things. And I think the answer is always both. Do both of those things. Because the other thing too, if you've got 4 or 5 different things that you're doing, any one of them can take off. Yeah. And that's great. And so therefore you can focus your time and money on that. If you're only doing one thing, you're very much at the mercy of it going away. And I've seen that. We've seen that happen to people. They're working on the road, they're making money from one thing. They've got one client, or they've got one site, or they've got one whatever. And then, however they were making their money just dries up. And that nice regular $2 or $3 grand a month they were pulling in suddenly becomes $200 or $300, and unless you've got a nice fat savings account to tide you over the hard times, you're going home.
And it kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier, the being adaptable thing. Hey, things are changing, so you roll with it. And
I think the part of that is don't be completely wedded to any one thing. As I say, be prepared to kill your babies. It's it's hard, but if you've got something that because it's very hard when you put all this time and energy and love into a site or a product or a project or something. But there also comes a time where you say, well, I actually can't. I can't do everything I need to do in the time I have. Something has to go. Yeah. What's it going to be?
Yeah. And hopefully, though, that process of building it up, even if it ends up being, it either fails or it has its time in the sun and it goes away, hopefully, a lot of it could be something that you really are passionate about. So it won't even be like maybe work necessarily. Like, you mentioned, like, it seems like your site's kind of drawn from a personal passion of yours. So I'm a geek at heart, so you have a site about travel technology. So I like the idea of taking something you're passionate about and applying that, and you can find a way to make a site for it.
And you absolutely can, but passion doesn't pay the bills.
True.
So
you have to find a way to monetize the passion.
Going in with a passion is great. Going in with a passion in the business model is even better.
Yes.
And that's the lesson I've learned. I mean, it's passion projects are awesome. But passion projects that have a direct route to funding your travels are better because it's very easy to spend, and I have spent way too much time on things that, as much fun as they are, they're not contributing to your bottom line.
We used to come up with all these really great ideas and we'd be like, yeah, let's do it, let's register a domain name. But now our first question is just, how do we monetize it?
Right.
I don't know.
And as mercenary as that sounds, fundamentally, our desire is to travel and enjoy our travels and have a great life, which means spending 100 hours a week in front of a laptop does not achieve that, even if that's a laptop in Chiang Mai, even if it's a laptop on the beach. It doesn't. 100 hours a week in front of a laptop is not sustainable or enjoyable over the long term. So therefore, whatever we do, there has to be at least some reasonable chance that there'll be some income that comes out of it. Hopefully, while still loving it. And
you're looking for income per hour time spent with this,
Well,
it's
yes. Yeah. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to correlate directly. I'm happy to go and spend 1,000 hours on something with no income, as long as I then see that will then become something that will generate some significant money after that. But
you don't want to indefinitely spend 100 hours a week on something that's...
And that's very easy, and blogging is a great example of that, because the barrier to entry is so incredibly low.
Right.
It's very easy to start and get into the grind of more content.
Right.
But there also has to become a more money point as well as a more content point.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just grinding time, and you're exchanging time for nothing. And so, like I say, you've got to have the passion, but the passion isn't sufficient.
Right.
There has to also be, you have to be satisfying a need out there. Ideally, a need that will put money into your bank account.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to ask you guys each one more question. And I guess I'll start with you, Lauren.
Yeah.
What's one thing you haven't done yet that you would like to do?
I would like to go to Antarctica.
Awesome.
And we were meant to be doing it at the end of this year, but no, we're not, so that's a bit sad.
And why aren't we doing it?
Because it's really expensive and because I have a book to write.
So after the book, maybe.
After the book, maybe.
You get the book published and and then hopefully it makes some money and to fund a trip to Antarctica.
Yeah. I think as well, because we don't take any sponsored trips, we pay for everything ourselves, every single thing. So a trip to Antarctica would be, 10 grand. Ones we really like for like $18,000 each. So, and because we pay for everything ourselves, I was like, that's going to be a big chunk of our savings for a 3-week trip.
Yeah, that's not cheap.
Pretty insane.
It's not quite traveling in Thailand.
No, not on a budget.
Well, it's traveling in Thailand for a year.
Right. Yeah, exactly. How about you, Dave?
Well, mine was going to be that one, so I'll come up with something else. Something I would like to do is a long walk. And I haven't decided exactly what form.
You mean like a really long walk?
A really long walk.
Okay.
So the Caminos, various Caminos in Europe are obviously a prime example of that. The Camino de Santiago, or whichever Camino you want to take, which are normally anything between 2 and 4, 6, 8 weeks, depending on what you're doing. There's one in New Zealand that goes from the top of the country to the bottom, which is more like a 6-month hike. There's there's one in Turkey that we've talked about that takes about a month or more. And coming from New Zealand, hiking has always been some part of my life, but not anything like that. It's always been a few days or an overnight trip or something. I think I'd like to expand that and have a very long walk.
Awesome.
So we'll see. Maybe as early as next year. We'll see how that goes. But
we'll be in Europe.
We'll be in the right place for many of them.
Yeah,
so it should be awesome if it happens.
You guys should combine it. Do a long walk in Antarctica, and then write a book about it.
I want to travel Antarctica.
Yeah. If we survive.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If you survive it, you can write a book about it.
Yeah. Traveling Antarctica on a budget. Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on.
No problem.
Folks can find you guys at your respective sites. There's whatsdavedoing.com and also toomanyadapters.com for you, Dave.
Yep.
And Lauren can be found at neverendingfootsteps.com.
Yep.
And people can find info about your new book. We'll link up. There's an article. You wrote a blog post recently about it.
Yes, I did.
How not to travel the world, and you have your announcement blog post. So on the write-up for this episode at WTEpodcast.com, I'll throw up links to all the ways you guys can find Dave and Lauren. You guys are also on Twitter, and what are your handles?
Mine is NE Footsteps.
What is it?
NE Footsteps.
NE Footsteps. Okay.
Yes.
And mine is Drifting Kiwi.
So that one?
Drifting Kiwi.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
put it in the show notes. People can find me.
Yeah, I'll throw all those links in the show notes. Your Facebook page, I'll get it for you guys and link up in the show notes. Awesome. Thank you guys again for coming on. Thank you everybody for listening to this episode of Walking the Earth podcast. If you are enjoying it, please do help us out with a rating review on iTunes or help yourself with a free audiobook at audibletrial.com/WTE podcast. Thanks again for tuning in. Thanks, Dave and Lauren. And we will catch you next time. Hasta luego.